How to make an elasticated circle skirt. Hello, welcome to Dorcas Fashion Academy. Today I'm going to teach you how to make an elasticated circle skirt. An elasticated circle skirt is basically a circle with a hole in the middle. The hole in the middle, under normal circumstances, we would think that we would have the waist measurement. But actually we don't. We need the hip measurement because it's going to go past our hips. So what we need is the waist, hips, and length. How would we do it? We would fold our fabric in four so that we could actually cut our fabric all in one. This way it would be much more symmetrical. We would take our fabric, fold it once, and then fold it again. And in this folded area is where we would position our chart. This chart here, you would cut along the edge and choose your correct size. This size has been already calculated so that once your fabric is folded in four, this corner would be positioned here, so that once we cut along the line, you would have your hip measurement already allocated. So let's get going. Okay, so here we have the length of the fabric folded all the way down, and now I'm going to fold this up. So you can see here we have the four raw edges. On this side we don't want to do anything at this moment. What we want to find is our folded edges. So this is our fabric. I'm going to use my paper scissors to cut my chart. And this is the corner that you have to position in all four folded fabrics, like this. And I will be choosing 90 for the hips, because I'm going to make it for a young girl, but it's going to be quite short. In this case, we're using a narrower width fabric, but I prefer to use 150 wide. So we have 1.50 meters by 1.50 meters. So basically, I'm going to cut where the 90 is. And although I will be using this to position, to be able to draw inside, you can use one or the other, it doesn't really matter. So basically, so this is my hips. Now, I have to do the length, and the length you have to always measure from the tip of the four folded fabrics. I want to have about 40. Actually, we just about have 40 here. I'm going to measure 39. And then I'll see. It's actually the whole width of my ruler from the tip to my chalk mark. So basically, I measure there, I measure in the middle, and in the middle of the middle, and in the middle of the middle, always making sure that the tip here is in the center of your tape measure or your ruler. in the middle of the middle and at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so basically this is my circle skirt. I'm going to cut where I have marked, and because we've marked a few times, we can follow the line easily. Okay, so once we've cut this, it's very important that we do our notches. Our notches are so that we know the quarters and the halves, because later to attach our elastic, we will need these marks. Okay, so this is your skirt cut. Right, so now we have our skirt cut, we have to prepare our elastic. If you check our instructions, you have a sort of diagrams on telling you how to cut your fabric folded in four. So here is where we do our waist. In this case, I have used 90 for the hips, and I will be using 70 for the waist. When you use the elastic, you have to deduct a little bit so that it makes it snug around the waist. You don't have to take too much, but if we have 70, which is my total, I have to wrap it around the waist of the person or myself to see if it's snug. And usually it's not tight because obviously it wouldn't be pulling. And once you sew it, it will pull even less. So I recommend you remove at least 5 centimeters. So instead of using 70, I'll be using 65. So it'll be 65 plus 2 centimeters seam allowance, because we're going to sew them together. So I'm going to cut here, and then I'm position one on top of the other, and I'm going to sew across. First I'm going to put a couple of pins, and then I'm going to sew across. So I have already sewn our elastic, and we have to find our quarters. The same as we did the notches, we'll find the quarters of the elastic. So basically we get our half, our seam. If you position our half with our seam, then we get our quarters. So basically this is more or less what we've done in the skirt, but on the elastic, so that later we can attach them. Now before you do this, because we are going to be attaching the elastic onto the fabric, this fabric is going to fray. So I'm going to do a zigzag all the way around so it doesn't fray. And usually I do it in black, but this time I'm going to do it in red so that you can see what I am doing. Okay, so now my zigzag is done, and I want to attach my elastic here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the back seam. We have a little bit of seam allowance here, and I will be positioning the wrong side of the elastic onto the right side of the fabric. So this is right side and this is right side. We will be sewing on top of the elastic. So to begin with, I will pin the seam on one of my notches. And then I'm going to continue and I'm going to attach each notch to each pin. So here's my notch and here's my pin. And I'm going to position one on top of the other with about 3/4 of a centimeter of overlap. As you can see, there's more fabric here than in the waist, but that's the whole intention. So again, looking for my notch, positioning this on top, making sure it's not twisted or anything. And this one as well. So now I have my 4 notches with my 4 pins equally distributed, which is why we do this. If you started on one side, put in the elastic, maybe when you get to the end, you've either got no fabric or no elastic. So once you have these two in position, you have to pull and find more or less a center. If you have an ironing board, you can pin this stretched. If you don't, well, you just do it a bit at a time. You see, once it gets smaller, it gets easier. So then you pin in the middle of the middle, like we've been doing before. So and continue to do this all the way around the waist. So now we have our waistband pinned, and you have to sew stretching your fabric and your elastic so that they both match. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a machine stitch close to the lower edge. You can even do a zigzag if you wanted to, so that you can attach both the fabric and the waistband together. Here you will be sewing in small batches from pin to pin, stretching in between to the maximum of the fabric allowance from below. My recommendation is not to rush this. Sew in short bursts, slow and steadily until you get to the end. Well, as you can see now, our waist or elastic is sewn to our skirt, and it has automatically gathered the excess fabric from the hips to the waist. As you can see, I decided to go for a zigzag, and it's here, you can see it's a bit wider. And this bit, you can sew it by hand, or you can machine stitch straight across just to flatten it. So now we go to the hem. The hem that we are going to do is a stitch over stitch, making it a very narrow stitch at the edge of the fabric. The first stitch is folding about a centimeter towards the inside of the skirt, machining very, very close to the edge. I stress this, that you have to sew very close to the edge, because otherwise this hem does not work. As you can see here, the stitch is close to the edge and there is a bit of excess fabric that we will now trim off, because when you trim it, then you can do the next stage of the hem. If you slide the scissors underneath that little bit of extra fabric, trying to cut very close to the machine stitch that you've already done, it will create a very tiny hem. Cut slowly so that you don't chop off any pieces of your skirt. Once this is done, you can easily fold that little bit of machine stitch and hem again, so that you can sew over all of that. This is a two-step hem. You fold and you sew, you trim, and now because it's nice and thick, you can fold it easily again and machine stitch over the edge. This makes it very fine and elegant hem for a circle skirt. Well, this is it. You have already finished your hem. Thank you for watching our video. I hope you've enjoyed our tutorial. If you like to have the free pattern, please click on the link below. Please give us a thumbs up if you're happy with our video. We always appreciate it. Thank you.